Hey guys, it's Lane with Tim's Nation. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the RTT that I played in this past weekend. Went to Recess in North Olmsted, had a nice turnout. They had 16 people show up. We actually thought there would be fewer people than that because it didn't seem like a lot of people in our group chat were going to go, but it turns out we had some strong players there. So I took my DeathWatch, my Devastating Wound DeathWatch. But the list is very different from what I have been playing in the past on the channel here. And I didn't bring it this week because I still have some paint to do on some of the models. So it goes against everything I believe in. But I took some unpainted models to a tournament. So I will go through what the list is and go through the individual games. I know there are some people on the channel here that have been kind of following the development of the DeathWatch. And I appreciate a lot of the feedback I've been getting from people. So I'm not going to keep you in suspense here. I did pretty well at the tournament. Again, 16 players. Because of that, only 2 of us went undefeated. So I did go 3-0. I didn't score enough points to take first place, so I did come in second place. But friend of the channel, Zach, he got first place because he got a perfect 300. Yep, scored 3 100-point games there, so he did very well. So congrats to Zach. I'm not going to give him a ride to the next tournament because I don't want him to do better than me. So anyways, congrats to Zach, but we both had an undefeated record. I'm going to talk through the list first, and then we'll go through the individual games a little bit if you're curious. So the DeathWatch list, I took this time. Now, it's a very different list. I changed most of the units that are in the list, but it's still the same concept, Devastating Wounds. Now, what I have been running is 3 squads of DeathWatch Terminators. The DeathWatch Terminators can take 3 heavy weapons in a 5-man squad, and I've been taking 3 assault cannons. That gives me 18 shots from that deep striking unit that have the Devastating Wound characteristics. Strength 6, AP nothing, 1 damage assault cannons, but they do have Devastating Wounds. And if you've been watching the channel into the DeathWatch mechanics, essentially what happens is that in one of my turns, I can pop off sustained hits for the entire army, and I can choose 2 targets, 2 an oath a moment target, and then a second target, and reroll hits and wounds into both of those, allowing me to fish for 6s. I fish for 6s on the hit roll to get the sustained, to get more hits. So typically I'm getting the same number of hits and shots. You know, if a unit's got 18 shots, it's usually getting 18 or more hits. And then I fish for 6s on dev wounds. I can reroll the wound roll, so I'll roll for 6s, pick everything that's not a 6, and roll again. Now, the reason this is so strong, obviously, is because dev wounds just go right through your armor save, your invuln save. I don't care if you're getting cover. And they are only 1 damage apiece, so they're ignoring any damage reduction on the very durable units. We know something like Catan's half damage, or before they even have their feel no pain. So it ignores armor, it ignores invuln saves, it ignores damage reduction. The only thing it does not ignore is a feel no pain. But we deal with that by just having a large volume of Devastating Wound shots. So I have been running a list based around this idea to have 1 turn where I just kill whatever cannot be killed and kind of put myself ahead of the game. I have been using 3 squads of Terminators because they each get 18 shots. However, I figured out something else that gives me a little bit more value for my points. And what I've been running, what I ran this past weekend, was 3 squads, 3 10-man squads of Stern Guard. GW in the recent balance data slate decided to increase the points on a bunch of things that most Space Marines players were taking, and they decreased the points on a few things that people weren't really taking. So I looked at them, looked at the Stern Guard. What is the deal with this unit? Well, there are 2 different bolters that the Stern Guard can take, and one of them is an anti-infantry gun, but its ballistic skill is only 4. It gets 1 shot, rapid fire 1. But again, the ballistic skill is only 4, but it's anti-infantry 4-up. So into infantry, it can do some Devastating Wounds because it does have the Devastating Wound ability on there. However, I took the Stern Guard bolters. And what the Stern Guard bolters do, and there's a whole list here, guys. They're assault, so I can advance and do actions with them. They're heavy, so if I stand still, they hit on 2s because their ballistic skill is 3. Strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage, and they have Devastating Wounds. There are 2 shots at 24 inches, but they're rapid fire 1. So if I get within 12 inches, they get 3 shots apiece. What this means is that this 90-point squad, or for 90 points for 5, or 180 for 10, if I'm within 12 inches, they get 30 shots. 30 shots because I've got 8 guys with those Stern Guard bolters. All of them have dev wounds. And then there are 2 heavy bolters. For every 5 men in the unit, you can take a heavy bolter. But it's a stern guard heavy bolter. What does that mean? It's the same thing as a regular heavy bolter, except it has dev wounds as well. So you've got now a gun that has 2 damage dev wounds into it. So that can really add up pretty quickly. So yeah, this 10-man squad has 30 shots if they are within 12 inches that have the dev wounds. Remember that Terminator squad that cost 210 points? It's only 18 dev wound shots. This is 30. Now, the thing is, Terminators can deep strike. That's great. That's very powerful. These guys can't. So I'm putting them in a drop pod. So I've got 3 10-man squads of Stern Guard, 8 guys with the bolters, 2 guys with heavy bolters, and the sergeant gets a power fist. And then going in a drop pod. So that little package, the 180 points for the Stern Guard and the 70 points for the drop pod, that's 250 points that drops either turn 1, 2, or 3. And if I get within 12 inches, I get 30 devastating wound shots. So I'm taking 3 of those. That's 90 devastating wound shots dropping on the table somewhere in the first 3 turns. In addition to that, I have a 6-man squad of the Devastator Centurions with the twin-link las cannon and the missiles. These are being used in the Vanguard detachments because you can pick them up and put them down. DeathWatch also have a teleportarium strat where you can pick up 1 infantry unit. So the only bad thing about Devastator Centurions is that they have a very low movement, only 4 inches. But their special rules, they reroll 1s to hit. If the target's on an objective, they reroll the entire hit roll, which is really good. Meaning you get another target you get rerolls into, not the oath target. So I've got a squad of 6 man of those, which I can pick up and put down with the teleportarium strat. I still have the 6-man eradicator brick in there, so 6 eradicators with a apothecary biologist, the enhancement, beacon and chalice, which is some deep strike. Then I've got 1 ATV with a Gatling cannon, 2 3-mans of plasma inceptors, and then the captain, of course. I need to have a captain, so I have Tome of Ectoclades. And I put a captain with a 10-man brick of assault intercessors. The reason the assault intercessors are there, obviously to keep the captain protected and safe, but what I found in the tournament I played in Cincinnati last month was that I had struggled sometimes with getting on primaries. Damage was always there, but primaries are a bit of a struggle. So because the assault intercessors are OC2, and they're pretty strong, they reroll wound rolls of 1, and if the target's on an objective, they reroll their entire wound roll. So they can slap a little bit in combat. But they can also get out and score me some primaries too, because once the captain pops his Tome of Ectoclades, and I no longer need to protect him so much, he can go out and do some business, do some work, score me some points, chop through some chaff, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much the entire list. I'll have it on the channel here soon. I want to get some paint on. But really what's happening is that, once per game, I can pop the Sustained and the Tome of Ectoclades and just put out a ton of devastating wounds into targets. And because I have the drop pods now, I can wait till turn 2 or 3, but I can do it turn 1. So turn 1, I have the ability to come in because the drop pods ignore, they can come in turn 1, 2, or 3, and they also ignore your limits to what goes into deep strike. So hilariously, I have 3 drops at the start of the game: the ATV, the Devastator Centurions, which I cannot be downy, and then the assault squad with a captain attached to it. So I only have 3 drops. But because the drop pods ignore limits to what goes into reserve, along with what goes in them, it's totally legal. So anyways, that is the army. So first game, I played against the Necrons. Then I played against Michael. I'd never met Michael before, so I was glad to meet him. We had a good game. Turn 1, I decided to pop off Tome of Ectoclades and my Sustained in turn 1 because he moved out the Nightbringer and a Silent King. And I decided, you know what, might as well go for it because he was playing Hypercrypt. I knew he would probably be able to bring that. He had some death marks and he had the monolith. He could probably bring in and snipe out my captain if I didn't pop that tome soon. I didn't want to lose it, so I went for the Nightbringer and the Silent King. And picked up the Nightbringer pretty easily. Silent King, he's got a lot of wounds between his 2 Minears and then himself having like 16 wounds. I got him down to 9 wounds, but didn't finish him off. So in my opponent's turn, he reanimated the Silent King. He came back up to 12 wounds. But when he moved him, I overwatched him because he was still a tome target. I overwatched with the Devastator Centurions. Sustained was still active because it goes until my next command phase. So I was re-rolling all the hits because he moved on to an objective. So Oh, he stole my tome target as well. So I was reeling all hits, reeling all wounds, and did take the last 12 wounds off the Silent King in Overwatch. The rest of the game, kind of pushing my advantage a little bit. The Monolith, my Eradicators, and my Devastator Centurions kind of bounced when I shot at the Monolith, because he did have a Monolith he brought in. I did some damage to him, but got him down to 7 wounds after the Eradicators and the Devastator Centurions had shot. Now, I didn't tome him, or didn't Oath of Moment him, because he was on objectives, and both the Eradicators, and that means the Devastator Centurions, were going to be re-rolling all their hits, but he popped the 4-up invuln strat. The Monolith didn't die. I had 7 wounds left. So then I just shot the Stern Guard at him. A lot of Stern Guard, I didn't move them, and all their bolters are heavy, so they were hitting on 2s, and I didn't get any wound rerolls, but I just, through naturally rolling the dice, I was able to get enough devastating wounds to pick up the Monolith. So I was glad in that situation to see the Stern Guard still contributing, even outside the tome turn where they would reroll wounds. I was glad to see that they were still, with that many shots, they're still going to pop off and roll some 6s naturally without any rerolls, and it was enough to finish off the Monolith. So a good game. I had a solid win. I think it was 90 to 50 something or 60 something. Don't exactly remember the score, but a solid win there. The next game was against Dark Angels, Nico. So Nico and I had a great game, a very close game. He had 3 squads of the Black Knights, the guys on bikes, plus 3 command squads of bikes. So he had 3 9-man Brixa squads and a bunch of speeders. So he had the Dark Shroud speeder, of course. He had 2 of the Dark Angel speeders that have the plasma cannons on them that do the shoot back thing. So if you shoot something that's close to them in your shooting phase, they can shoot you back immediately. And then he had a couple of the Thunderstrike Storm speeders, which give you +1 to wound against vehicles. The only vehicles in my list are drop pods, so they weren't super useful in this matchup. A real good game. Nico played it really well. But I did use the Devastating Wound turn, the Tome of Ectoclades turn, to pick up 2 of those squads of bikes. And then throughout the game, just kind of had the advantage because I was able to do so much damage early on. Still a close game, though. I think I only won by 12 points, so still a pretty close game. And I appreciate Nico for the good time. He made a couple good plays in there that were pretty solid, too. So took me on to my third game. I played against John. We had a great time, real great opponent. Unfortunately, he brought Votann. It was a good Votann list. 2 Hecatons, I think 4 Sagittars, 2 5-mans of Hearthguard, a 6-man brick of the Thunderkin, some Berserks, some of the Warriors, none of the jet bikes or anything, but a pretty durable list. I could have stepped out and tried to start doing some damage turn 1, but I was patient. I waited till turn 2. He kind of moved everything forward and took all the objectives in the middle of the table, which is what you're supposed to do in Warhammer. But I popped off my Sustained. I popped off my Tome of Ectoclades. I Tome of Ectoclades at 2 Hecatons. He gave me enough room to drop my drop pods behind him in his deployment zone, and then the Eradicators, and then the Plasma Inceptors, and then the Devastator Centurions shot, and the dice were not wildly above average, but definitely very solid. And I picked up 840 points in a single round of shooting. Both Hecatons died to devastating wounds from the squads of the Stern Guard. I forgot to mention that the Stern Guard do have bolters, so you can use the DeathWatch bolter rules on them. So one of the strats that I used was the one that extends their range by 6 inches, because that extends your rapid fire range. So one of the squads I couldn't drop quite so everybody was within 12 inches to get their rapid fire. I just spent this 1 CP on the strat to extend their range by 6 inches, which extends their rapid fire range by 3 inches. So they were doing rapid fire within 15, and they were able to get all their shots. So I picked up the 2 Hecatons with devastating wounds. The Devastator Centurion picked up one of the Sagittars. One of the squads of the Stern Guard charged in and fought a squad of Thunderkin that got out of one of the destroyed Hecatons. The Eradicators popped another Sagittar. The Plasma Inceptors blasted the Berserks that got out of one of the Sagittars that got destroyed. Hilariously, the Stern Guard also each get 4 attacks in combat. Most Marines, the base Marines, are 3 attacks. It's strength 4, AP nothing, 1 damage, but just that volume of attacks is going to get through, especially when you're off in the sustained or a lethal turn. You're going to get some decent damage output with them. So one of those squads was able to pick up a 3-man Thunderkin squad. So yeah, a real rough turn for John. The for those of you that have been watching the Devastating Wounds DeathWatch list, it did what it was supposed to do, which was kill the things that are hard to kill, which is the 2 hecatons. They got 2 up armor, 16 wounds, and you can put void armor on them, and they get covered depending on where they are, and none of that mattered because the Devastating Wounds just went right through it. So, and then in John's turn, he moved the Sagittar onto an objective, and I overwatched with the Devastator Centurions, so they got to reroll their hits, and they got to reroll wounds because the last cannons were twin linked. So I picked up a Sagittar in his turn, so it came right about to about 1,000 points in a single turn. So John was a good sport about it. We still had a good time. He had forgotten a couple of the rules on his Votan, so learned a few things that he had some extra guns that he forgot about. But anyways, it was a great tournament at Recess. Had a really good time. Everyone seemed to have a really good time there. Like I said, 16 people turned out, so it was a good turnout. And had a good time. The DevWatch did pretty well. So kind of making up a little bit for going 2-3 at the tournament in Cincinnati last month. So went 3-0 this past weekend. So I hope to get them out there a little bit more. I'll get them up this list on the channel soon. But like I said, I want to finish the paint for you. And I've got just so many Stern Guard to paint. And a couple drop pods too. So yeah, look for those soon in the next month or so. And I'll talk to you guys later.